Welcome back to the Mintner Method. I'm your host, Andrew Mintner, and on today's episode, we are going to break down the Big Ten matchup between Washington and Indiana. So right out the gate, I think it's important to say that this is a pretty surreal matchup to be looking at this late in the season. I did think Indiana was going to be a good team this year. I wrote them up as a possible 6-win team that could surprise you, and they would improve. But I did not have them anywhere near this level of success. And if anybody told you they did, they're completely full of shit. So, I felt like they would have a gigantic upgrade, bringing over the entire James Madison staff. It would help their culture, and then they brought in Curtis Rourke from Ohio as a quarterback. And, I felt like they would be greatly improved. I did not see that they would be sitting here with a possible trajectory of making the Big Ten championship game and possibly a playoff berth. Like, that is insane to me. But they have done it, and the main reason I believe that they have done it is because they are number one overall on early downs EPA on offense. And to put that in perspective, this is number one overall versus Power 5 teams. So this is against the best competition on their schedule, and they are excelling. And that's just one of the biggest factors that I can see, and I think along with the discipline that the team has been given via this coaching staff change. Now, let's dive right in. As you can see, these numbers here are based off of the 70 Power 5 teams and Notre Dame. So, ranking 20th and 21st for Washington, that's good, but that is not elite level, like 20th out of 134 teams. Okay, so that's important to understand. Indiana is elite when it comes to early downs offense, as I just prefaced. They are number one overall, and they are just, they are. This is setting up success for their entire team. And now, when we break into the advanced stats part of the equation, it's important to understand how these teams function, these offenses especially. Washington is not explosive at all. And that's totally fine because, you don't have to be explosive to be offensively sufficient, right? But it does help because being this inexplosive, means that you got to get a lot of things right in every drive. And so, as we have prefaced before, this is about my third or fourth video on Washington. I think it is important that we understand these teams' tendencies, and that we cannot assume that just because there isn't a theoretical advantage in an area that they're going to take advantage of that. When I did the Iowa video, I felt like Washington had a clear-cut advantage in throwing the ball down the field, especially on deep passing attempts. Iowa had a significant weakness there. But the thing is, Washington does not throw the ball down the field a lot. And, that's just not who they are from an offensive identity. And so we can't, make these assumptions that they're going to change when in reality they're just not. We're too far into the season. These are the teams. The teams are who they are. They're going to play the way, that their tendencies tell that they're going to play. And so, that's an important thing to understand when we're doing these videos and these analysis. Just because there is a clear-cut advantage for a team, that doesn't mean they're going to take advantage of that. That doesn't mean that they're going to implement some fresh new game plan to take advantage of that weakness. It's just not what it is. We have to accept that and understand that. Otherwise, we're making these theoretical situations that are just not going to come to fruition. So anyway, rant over. But as you can see, Washington's offensive line is pretty solid. They're 4th and 7th in offensive line yards and stuff rate, 44th in front 7 havoc allowed. But their rushing is not as good as you would think it would be. They're 59th in offensive efficiency and then 12th in passing efficiency. Not even close to explosive in either metric. And then when we look at the Indiana defense, they are solid across the board. We're looking top 30 in 6 categories to start, and not to mention they're top 30 in 8 categories. And they're very, very good against the pass and formidable against the run. So this is going to be a strength on strength matchup from the Washington side of the ball. And then when we move to Indiana, there is a clear cut weakness for this Washington defense, and it's their run game. And we saw that against Iowa. We pointed that out. And I mean, 113th in defensive stuff rate, 106th in defensive line yards, front seven, 100th in defensive havoc, 93rd in rushing explosiveness allowed. Like there's a clear cut weakness to this defense, and it's the front seven, and that's just that. Indiana, I'm not sure if they're going to take clear cut advantage of that because Curtis Rourke is a very good quarterback, and they are first overall in passing efficiency, so they're not going to probably take the ball out of their best player's hand just to take advantage of something. But they have a very good coaching staff that understands the weaknesses of their opponents, as was foresaw that you saw against Nebraska. I did not think Indiana was going to just utterly decimate Nebraska like that. But I was fucking wrong. So it is important now for us to look at the depth profiles, mainly for these offenses, these passing offenses. Okay, so Washington here, this is their overall profile against their whole schedule. They live in the Mickey Mouse range. 9 yards or less, 68% of their passes are 9 yards or less, 27th in EPA per attempt. Indiana is significantly less than that. They're 60%. And I know you're like, oh, 8%, that's not that big. It is a big deal. It's a gigantic deal. Especially when you're throwing, 30, 35 passes. That could be the difference, And so, but what's even more eye-opening is Indiana's even better than Washington in this area of the field. They're fourth overall in EPA per Mickey Mouse attempt. So when we look at down the field throws, it's important to understand that, Indiana is just as good in this as they are passing it, passing it 9 yards or less. And passes 10 yards or more down the field, they're sixth in EPA per attempt. And they just decimate. They're just incredible in the medium range from 11 to 19 yards. Now we're like, okay, well, let's go to the Power 5 part of that. We need to know if that's going to uphold against better competition. Well, it sure does. They're third overall in passes 10 yards or more down the field, and they're fourth in the medium range, right around the same EPA, 0.79, 0.793. This is, they're carrying their offense with the same success. And that is very, very important. Now, when we look at Washington, they're very good still in the 9 yards or less short range, 12th overall on that. And then when it comes to down the field, they're still solid. They're .465, 24th overall out of 70 teams when it comes to passes further down the field. They are less than what they are against their overall schedule, but it's not significantly less. It's not like they're 50% less efficient against Power 5 teams, right? But the important thing here is we need to look at the defensive side of the ball, okay? So when we're looking at Indiana in 9 yards or less situations, they're 71st overall. And that's pretty average, right? And they're not that great against, the short yard. They're 95th in EPA per short yard attempt. And then when you're looking at Washington, again, their strength is their secondary, and they're very good there. So, but let's take a look at the Power 5 side of it to make sure we're not missing anything, right? So the Power 5 side of it, you can see that Indiana is, spot on. They're right on where they have been for their whole schedule, and this will be a part of the game where it's decided more or less. When it comes to down the field throws, though, there will be none for the taking for Washington. Indiana is elite down the field, and they will have to basically methodically drive on them for long drives, which they have done, throughout the year, but they will have to do it consistently in this game. And the same can be said when it comes to Washington and their secondary. You're just not going to take advantage of them deep. It's just not going to happen, right? So one thing I want to look at here is we need to look at kind of the tendencies of Indiana and kind of what we were looking at for Washington. And as you can see from a passing point, Rourke is averaging 25 attempts per game, right? And so if we look at the game log, you know, they're not passing the ball more than 35 times. Now, granted, some of these games are out of hand, so of course they're not going to pass it more. But 10.8 yards per attempt is insane. Like, they are extremely efficient when passing the ball. As you can see, they do not turn it over. 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Now, when we look at the rushing side of the ball, that's kind of where the entire game could be in limbo, right? So their game logs here, to average 6.5 yards per attempt against that Nebraska team is eye-opening to me because they come in as one of the best units from last year with great returning production, and I did not see that coming. So let's look at Nebraska just to make sure that this isn't a one-off or maybe I'm missing something because I don't feel like I am here. Yeah, I wasn't, okay? So look at these other averages, okay? 2.4 yards per attempt, 1.61 yards, 4 point. I mean, like, those are respectable games, right? 6.5 yards per attempt. That is insane. They just destroyed them. Like, they just lined up and destroyed them overall, right? So let's go back, and we're going to take a look at Washington in general, okay? And the reason here is we want to see, you know, the difference, basically, and you'll see it quickly as I get to it. Because this is the weakness of this defense. It's very simple. It's very straightforward, okay? So against Michigan, they did okay. Iowa, they did not. Okay, Rutgers, they did not. And so, yes, they did have a ton of turnovers in the Iowa game, which was, you know, part of it. But you can't give up sub 6 yards per attempt on the ground and expect to win. It's just not. You just can't, especially when these teams are figuring out 37 yards, 37 attempts. And here's the other thing, okay? So they beat Michigan, but Washington hasn't faced one quarterback really on this entire schedule outside of Washington State's Mater is his name. I think I got that right. And so, like, their secondary looks really good, and it is solid. But they face nobody when it comes to quarterback play. And so that's something to me that just – I feel like Rourke is going to have his he's going to have his moments. But I also feel like this rushing attack is just going to – I mean, they're going to have their way with them. And the biggest thing here is – Washington has the extra week to prepare, and they will have to go on the road to play Indiana here. But the thing is, like, there is no, like, look ahead. Indiana doesn't play Ohio State until November 23rd. So there's no look ahead in this game, in my opinion. So, I mean, they're gonna take, and there's no, like, adrenaline dump either. Yeah, they dominated Nebraska, but they were supposed to win that game. They were favored by 6.5. So I feel like wholeheartedly that they really are set up for a gigantic success here. And when I look at the overall rushing for this team, obviously Curtis Rourke is not a rushing threat. But, I mean, these guys, like, you got 4 running backs here with 20 attempts or more, and every single one of them's averaging over 5 yards per attempt. Like, this is the depth here at running back is unparalleled. This is insane. Now, the line, if I'm not mistaken, is sitting at 6.5, and that kind of worries me if we're going to be completely honest. I feel like it should be higher. It should be like 9.5, but I'm not going to sit here and, like, sway away from it and be like, oh, yeah, it should be 9.5. You know, something's up, like sharp money's. I don't give a shit about that. I don't care about that. I've analyzed the game from top to bottom. I feel like Indiana is equipped to take advantage of Washington in the areas that they have weakness. And I also feel like they're strong enough in their strengths to take them strength on strength in certain spots of the game. Now, obviously, Washington, Indiana is not elite when it comes to stopping the short yard plays. So, like, there will be success for Washington in those areas at certain points. But the thing is, when you're not explosive on offense, you have to string together so many plays to get to the end zone, and that's just not. You can't do that time and time and time and time and time again. It does not work like that. It's very very tough to do that, and I feel like Indiana, uh, it checks a lot of spots. They're playing at home. The only negative here is Washington has the extra week, but there's no look ahead. They're disciplined. They're primed. I don't feel like when I look at this team, okay, the red flags that I normally would look at are not here. They have not. They've won every single game by double digits. Now I know this isn't the toughest schedule, but like that's still saying something. Washington, on the other hand, like a ton of close games, right? One, two, I mean, the Michigan game was close until the end, and then they got blown out. Like they're coming off. I know Jed Fish, in my opinion, is a great coach. I feel like he is really good. I just think this team has too many things that they need to get right going forward to win, and that's just not going to happen against Indiana, who is shown to be a Cinderella-esque team, but they're not doing it in Cinderella-esque ways. They're not winning close games. They're dominating everybody on their schedule. So anyway, that's going to be it for this video. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Share it with a family member, a friend, someone who you think might be interested in the content. I haven't done as many videos the last couple weeks, which is totally fine. Like I've had some personal things that I want to deal with and take care of, and that are important. They're more important than doing YouTube videos, to be quite frank. And so I do have one suggestion video that I'm going to do. I believe someone wanted UNLV and Boise State, which is a great game. Will determine more than likely the Mountain West bid if they can get in the playoffs. So I am going to do that. I have a couple other games on the list. I do have a UFC video, which is going to be super, super dense. That's my main focus this weekend. It's an amazing card. So that's going to be pretty much it, guys. Thanks again. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.